Good evening and welcome to the MG EVs community podcast, streaming live on Thursday, the 20th of April, 2023. Welcome all. We discuss all MG electric vehicles, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum, and currently driving a new style ZS long range. Joining us this week, a newbie, very welcome, Tom Sedge from Devon. Tom, welcome.
Hello, hi.
And Barry Hager from Essex.
Good evening.
You left me hanging there.
Yeah. Barry H on the forum.
And from the Charlie Group, the Innovations Development Manager, Miles Roberts.
Good evening, everyone. Miles Roberts, CG on the forum.
Great, thanks everybody. Keep the comments coming in. We see that there's some comments already, so that'll be good. If you're watching live, thank you for joining us, and please click the like button and join in the discussions. As we've said, I've already seen one really bad joke already from Archie, so there we go. If you're watching later, thank you for choosing to watch the video, and please subscribe to get a notification of the next time we go live. In tonight's podcast, we're going to discuss three things mainly: the MG4, 5 and ZS, and we'll see what comes up in the chat. But we'll take any comments, and certainly good to get some updates on how the MG4 is settling in. Also, there's been quite a lot of chatter this last day or so about the Octopus tariff changes, so we'll be getting a bit of an insight in that. And Miles has got some news about the MG Cyberster. I'll pronounce it right one of these days, Miles.
MGC.
Yeah, I hope they change it soon.
We'll get you in one of these, Dave, and you'll be fine. I can see you shooting around the Highlands.
I think I would like to see that, yeah. Before we progress, again, we've got a big thank you to some of the MG EV Premier members: EV Cog, Charlie Bravo, Barry H himself, Whiskery, Larger Baloo, Big Bear, Elec Car Ost, well, that's Australia, maybe Austria, we don't know, and Simon D. Thank you very much for your membership. It all really does help. So where do we want to kick off, guys? Any updates? Or well, maybe Tom.
Should we start with the Cyberster, because it's kind of a new thing.
No, we won't. I'm forgetting my manners. Tom, you are brand new to... And here's Liz. Liz is sneaking.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Snuck in.
Yeah, we can hear you.
You can hear me. You can hear me. Hi, Barry. Hi, Tom.
Hi,
Miles, Stuart, and Dave.
Good seeing you. Now, Tom's new.
Sorry, I'm a bit late. I couldn't remember the passcode.
Please tell him it's not Cyberster, because I'll never hack you. Tom's new to the forum, so Tom, can you just give us a couple of minutes on who you are, where you are, and your EV driving experiences?
Yeah, so I'm down in South Devon, Paynton by the sea. Some of you may have holidayed there. So we're truly the length and breadth of the UK today. And recent EV owner. First EV is the MG4 behind me here. And we've had that since the beginning of March, the new registration. Loving it so far, all going well, fingers crossed. But yes, it's all new to me, but I've been immersing myself in the EV world for a few years leading up to this, to try and learn and understand about life with an EV ownership. And I'm just finding it a revelation. I came from a DSG Skoda Karoq, and I just find the MG a far, far better drive, rear drive, no gears. Very smooth, very nice, good power. So it's a revelation so far.
Good. Yeah, you're loving it. We know there are one or two teething problems.
Yes.
Miles, maybe can you recap on just where we are with the known problems?
Well, I mean, there's been various problems, obviously, with the oil breather pipe on the rear axle. As far as I'm aware, all the ones that we've had in are now at Charlie Group are now rectified. So we don't believe that the oil leak is continuing after we've fitted the modified breather. Having said that, there are other people on the forum that have reported that they have had an oil leak after the breather. All I can say is take it back to your dealer. They must have done something wrong. Something must not quite be tight there, or something's been, or they've overfilled it again. We've not had any problems since we've enacted the fix that MG told us about. Some people
has there been more than one version of the fix, just to make it clear for people, because it sounds like there's been a version 1, a version 2, or a change to the way it's fixed.
So initially they were when the problem first reared its head before Christmas, they were talking about it was the wrong level of oil in the diff.
Yeah,
it was being kicked out, and then later they had a modified breather pipe which was then fitted. We then reported back on this modified breather that the hose clamps that it came with were not the right specification, and we changed them, and then MG changed it in the kit. So it might be that there are some out there which have had the modified breather but with the wrong hose clips, because their dealer just fitted the ones that came with it rather than actually inspecting what they were doing, and that could potentially cause it to leak still. But as far as I'm aware, that's now rectified and it's been fixed on the production line, so other vehicles are not affected. And
that's good. I'm just seeing on the chat that someone's asking about the oil level. So I think that was reduced from the original level. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. I can't remember the actual total, but yes, the dealerships have been told about the correct oil level amount to check and refill. What else was I going to say? I've seen some people have mentioned that they've had a problem with restricted power on the car. Where it's on the standard range version, I think, where it's they're saying that, particularly on lower states of charge, it's restricting the power. I think that it's a software issue, but any examples like that you take to your dealership, they report to MG, and then we can investigate. It doesn't seem to be affecting all cars, so it might just be that there's an update that's not been done on PDI that needs doing.
Yeah. I mean, just on that, Miles, there's two separate issues that I'm aware of from the threads on that. One is restricted power, but the other one is a restricted speed. So people have found that, particularly with the short range models, that at a lower state of charge, say 50% or less, they'll be driving along and all of a sudden it won't go above a certain speed, which is a bit alarming when you're perhaps joining
we haven't, to my knowledge, we've not had any reports of that at our dealership.
Right.
So if somebody's reporting that on the site, it's not something we've seen, unfortunately. So I can't.
But presumably, there's no feature that would do that. That sounds like a fault.
Yeah, unless they'd somehow managed to get a manual speed limit fitted. But it's such a faff to put a speed limit on in the car that I imagine that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah.
No, there's no good reason why that would happen. So again, it's just a case of taking it to the dealership and getting a case raised. It's not a feature of the car. It's not one that's been widely reported, and certainly we've not had any customers, to my knowledge, with that issue. So it sounds as if it's isolated and possibly software related. It could be, it could be a hardware issue, I suppose, but it's not something that would. They don't all do that.
Yeah. Okay.
It could be possibly battery temperature, because the standard range is an LFP battery, and LFP batteries are very temperature sensitive, and it depends on lower state of charge. It makes it more sensitive to the temperature, and if the temperature's low, then it will self-limit being able to deliver the.
I would have thought that would be from like a standing start from cold, not when it's been driven for an hour and then.
Yeah, I mean,
the battery's warmed up enough, but yeah.
I would have thought also that would be more like to be restricting power than speed. It's the speed one that sounds sort of.
Yeah, it sounds strange. It's like limiting it to 50 miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah, and then it basically the power is decreasing so that you can't increase the speed beyond that. That's what people are reporting. But obviously, the fact that it's not predictable means that if you're trying to overtake, that it can be a bit alarming.
Yeah, no, I imagine. Yeah, no, it's not. I say it's not something that we've had reported ourselves. And then what else was there? Something else that was on the forum.
See, Barry's picked up here as the Anthony's query about condensation on the tail lights.
Yes.
Yeah, so actually this condensation inside the lights, it's a lot of cars now which obviously have LED lights both front and rear. I actually noticed it. I was watching my wife's Volvo XC40 yesterday, day before, and as I watched it, I saw that there was condensation on the inside of her lights as well. And you know, that's a 65 grand SUV that has exactly the same headlights as any other Volvo, and so it's not a build quality issue. It's the fact that just the LED, particularly in these cooler temperatures where we have a bit more moisture in the air, if the temperature changes on, you know, around it, it can cause condensation. It does evaporate relatively quickly, and there are drain holes to allow out excess moisture to drain out. But it does just happen particularly because the bulbs are so much cooler when they're LEDs rather than being, you know, halogens. The temperature of the light unit doesn't tend to dissipate any moisture, whereas obviously in older headlights it used to. It's kind of a feature of LED headlights. As we get into hopefully towards slightly warmer weather or slightly less humid weather, you should notice that disappears naturally. It's not a warranty fault as such. It's a feature of the fact that you've got a cold perspex light with warm, moist air around.
Some cars will actually detail that in the manual that it's something which will happen, and they give the explanation that there is a breather, and obviously it will draw in moisture, and then if the humidity changes outside, then condensation forms on the inside of the light. It's only a problem if it fills up and water is slopping around, or it starts causing corrosion on any of the reflectors, but they're normally designed now to cope with that.
Yeah, I guess the size of it as well, the size of the rear light on the MG4 makes it particularly prone to it, because it's
you've got basically a big light bar going across the whole thing. I suppose you've got an SE, it's probably less likely to be visible. I'm just seeing also Anthony Kane's commented and said when his car, which I think is a MG4, when it's charging, if you open the driver's door from the outside, the charging stops. This has started happening after a software update. I believe that was always the case, that if you open the driver's door, the car thinks that you're unlocking it, so you're possibly going to then want to remove the charging cable. So it pauses, and then after I think about 20 seconds, it relocks the charger and starts charging again.
Yep.
So I'm fairly sure that's been the case all the time, but I apologise, Anthony, if you've not seen it before. As far as I'm aware, that was a known feature.
I agree with that, Miles. I agree with that all the way, because every time you open the driver's door, it will pause for about 30 seconds and then it kicks in again.
Yeah. On a rapid charge, I think it just drops the charge rate down to about 3 amps and then restarts it. It doesn't actually stop a rapid charge.
I've not tried that. I don't know. I haven't tried that.
Yeah, I must admit, I've done that when rapid charging, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah,
So,
I think
so
it might
just for AC charging, is it?
Yeah, it is for AC charging. Yeah.
Okay.
What I was going to say as well. I just saw one of the comments. For 1 second. Oh, I just saw somebody saying that they've got. Sean says, I'm in Ireland. My MG ZS EV is now built and ready to ship, so it should be 8 to 10 weeks. Ordered in June 2022. Finding some movement. I've just had an update today that in the UK, MG ZS EVs are now running at about 6 months behind. So we were about 12 to 18 months last year. So now it's to about 6 months, and they've reopened ordering for the MG ZS EVs as well. So if you want to order a ZS EV, you can now, because they did pause it for a time here in UK. And in terms of sort of lead times for other vehicles, MG5s are currently in stock in the UK. You can physically get hold of MG5s within about 2 weeks. The MG ZS EVs, yeah, about 20 to 24 weeks. MG4s are sort of standard factory orders are 12 to 16 weeks. So MG4 we've got in 4 to 8 weeks, actually. Looking at this, yeah, there's physical stock on the way to the UK and waiting to depart from factory. So most colours, it looks like you can actually get yeah, within sort of 4 to 8 weeks, so 2 months for an MG4, which is pretty good, really.
Miles, your ZS EV, is that 5 to 6 months from time of ordering? You're not bursting Sean's bubble, are you?
No, it's 5 to 6 months from point of ordering. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So Sean's obviously is built and it's on the water. So that's great. The new ones are coming quicker.
Yeah, the 4 is certainly a lot have come in. Are they continuing to produce big numbers? Are they still ramping?
Yeah,
up?
yeah. The MG4's a really sort of volume model at the moment. With I think it was was it right saying that the MG4 was the second best selling electric vehicle last month, I think. So
that's right. Yeah, behind Model 3 Tesla.
Yeah, so it's it continues to be a popular model. And I was doing an event yesterday in Manchester with the BEV network, and it was like a sort of questions and answers sessions on a panel, and somebody said, what's your favorite car at the moment? What would you recommend? If somebody's asking you for a car, what would you recommend? It is a harder question to answer than it was sort of 8 years ago when I started doing this, because back then there was only really the Nissan Leaf, the Renault Zoe, and then the BMW i3, and now every man and his dog makes an electric car, and there are an awful lot of good choice out there. But I sort of say, realistically, under the sort of £35,000 to £40,000 price bracket, the MG4 is pretty class leading for the package it offers in terms of the range, the specification, the drive of it, the size that it is, and everything else. The MG4 really does hit that sweet spot, and I think that in many ways, looking at all of the other cars that are produced, you have to spend quite a lot more money to get significantly better in any particular area. To get a bigger car, or you tend to be going for SUVs apart from that. And I was saying last night, I've just come out of the Nissan Ariya for the last 6 months. I've been driving that. It was a smaller battery Ariya, so it did a real world sort of maximum 240 miles range. In winter, it's down to about 180. That's a 63 kilowatt hour usable battery. But it's a bigger car, obviously, than the MG4. But I don't need a bigger car than the MG4. A lot of the time, it was just me in it. The only time it was usefully big was when I was taking a whole lot of stuff to the tip, and I did it in one trip instead of two. But apart from that, there was no real benefit to having such a big vehicle. I think really we could do with more manufacturers concentrating on family size or smaller cars. You C segment or below, because as a tight Yorkshireman, I think that the more efficient you can make something, the less electric it's going to cost you, the better, really. I saw there's talk of the new Range Rover Sport being electric and having a 200 kilowatt hour battery, and yes, it'll do 400 and odd miles on a charge, but it's a 200 kilowatt hour battery, so it's getting 2 miles per kilowatt hour. And it's like, I'd much rather have that 200 kilowatt hours going into 4 cars that will also do 200 miles each, because that's really all you need it to do, rather than having one person who's going to be charging his car for 3.5 days at home just to fully charge the battery. So I do think there's there has to be a,
and it would probably cost about £100,000 as well.
Yeah, well, and the rest,
I think the Hummer.
I think that the big problem is really that yes, that's where they can make more profit as a manufacturer, but so I was really excited to hear about the sodium batteries which Cattle has started making in China. So sodium batteries, using sodium using salt instead of lithium, basically, are about as energy dense as LFP. They are about a fifth of the cost currently to produce. So if you're looking at sort of price per kilowatt hour, you're talking about $120 per kilowatt hour for a LFP battery. You're looking at about sort of $20-25 per kilowatt hour for sodium, and they're talking it could drop down to about sort of $17 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that the batteries will become much cheaper before long.
So I think the fact, if we can get away from mining lithium, if we can get away from the cost of that, if you think about so a 60 kilowatt hour battery, rather than it costing something like $7,500, instead could cost you less than 2.
Yeah.
So that's, a $5,000 saving on the cost price of
difference.
vehicle, which then translates into more affordable cars for more people. So
Yeah.
I think that's some great news.
Just want to pick out something from the chat. So Andy's asking about wind noise on his driver's side front quarter window pane. Yeah, I've seen posts about that. I haven't had it myself, but it's definitely a fault that can be rectified at the dealer. There's an alignment or a problem with the seal on some of the quarter lights with some cars.
Yeah, I had that on a Nissan Leaf actually, and it was that the front quarter light had not. It's basically a bonded glass panel, and it had the bonding had failed on one edge, so it must have had some grease or something on it when it was in the factory, and it was whistling on that, and we got it rebonded and it was fine. So if you got any wind noise like that, take it to the dealer. It's something that gets fixed under warranty. It's not. It does happen to all brands. I've had it on Nissan. I've had it on various cars now. So, what's this? So, I suppose next thing to talk about would be the MG HS. By the way, there's a new article out today in Autocar. MG HS has got a facelift, but not the plug-in hybrid version yet. So the plug-in hybrid version isn't going to be facelifted until September. So if anyone was interested in a HS plug-in hybrid, there are
that was number 1, wasn't it? The sales charts not long ago.
Yeah, well, we had a whole load arrive finally in January because there'd been a whole load which we were expecting at the end of last year. They ended up getting held over till January, and so we had about 3,000 or something registered in 1 month. But yes, they've done a run out over the last couple of months of the previous model. So the petrol version is getting facelifted. We should start to see those cars sort of end of May, start of June. But the plug-in hybrid, which is the more interesting one for us, people who are interested in electric cars, that's going to get facelifted as well, but not till September. So if you're in the market for a plug-in hybrid HS, you either make the choice of perhaps saving a bit of money at the moment because there's some good offers on, or you wait until September and get one which is got the new facelift and the new interior, new entertainment system and everything like that. So.
Yeah, I can see also in the chat, Jeff Cartwright's asking about the new batch of ZS EVs, whether would be without the sky roof on the top spec. And also on the MG4, there's been a bit of controversy because apparently the trophies are not going to get the black roof from some time.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Yeah. So
can you say any more about that?
Yeah, so with regards to the ZS EVs, cars which were ordered after the 1st of July last year shouldn't be coming with the sky roof now. Having said that, there are still some coming through because where customers have cancelled their order and changed colour because they've changed to a different order, that car's still been built as it was originally, and then that's come through with the roof. So you might win a roof on that. With the MG4, orders for trophy models placed after the 28th of February will not have the black roof and will come with 18-inch alloy wheels instead of 17-inch alloy wheels.
So that's the date you ordered, not the production date.
Correct.
Right.
Which actual fact is probably one of the same sort of thing really at the moment. Again, there may be some that are, a fleet order gets redistributed or whatever, and you end up with. So you might see, a brand new one being handed over in the next week or two, which is still at the black roof. But no, there's going to be a change, which we'll start to see. I imagine from sort of May, we'll start to see those cars coming through.
I guess if you're desperate for a black roof, you can always have it put on as a.
Yeah, it comes out wrapped.
Yeah,
just get
And I think people will like the larger wheels, so there'll be quite a few who like that.
Yeah, and then there's talk of the MG4 all-wheel drive. We don't have a date for that yet. Obviously there's it's launched as the Mulan in China. All-wheel drive, sort of close to 400 horsepower. It's going to be a very potent thing, but I think that we're still waiting on pricing and availability and dates and stuff. We've got no sort of clear timeline as when that's coming. I was hoping it's going to be here by summer, so we should expect to hear some news within the next month or two. Obviously, as soon as we do hear some news, we'll update you via the forums. And then I suppose the next model to talk about would be
Cyberster. We've been talking about this side now for about 2.5 years, man.
But before you leave the MG4, is the extended range
Oh yeah,
in
what
the
about that?
pipeline? Because that's, was it 77 kilowatt hours? Was
77
that
Again,
Battery,
there's talk of a different battery size coming to the MG4. Again, we've got no timeline. We don't know if it's going to be restricted to certain specifications. It might only come in the all-wheel drive version, for example.
That's what I heard. It was coming with the all-wheel drive. That's all.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's going to also be available with a lower, with the
Yeah. Okay.
trophy as it is, with just two-wheel drive. I don't know. So once we get some clarity on that, we'll obviously update you all.
Les, you had a problem with your MG4, a distorted panel or whatever. What's the latest on that?
Distorted. Say again.
You mean the undertray or?
Yeah,
The
that's
other
right,
tray
yeah.
you're talking about, it's still the same. It's never been altered. When the car went in last time for the door locking updates, they told me Charlie I had an oil leak, which I'd never seen. I'd looked and I'd kept an eye on it, but I could never see oil. Apart from there might be the odd little drip on the not a drip on the driver at all, nothing on the floor, just a little slitherwood. It's been blown back slightly, but I couldn't find nothing. I looked and looked and looked, and I never seen nothing. And when I took it in to have the door locking recall done, they told me that yes, there was an oil leak, and they was having it back in to do the breather, which they did. I asked them about the undertray, and I was told quite bluntly that there's nothing going to be done with the undertrays. They're okay, they're not a safety issue, and nothing's going to be done with them.
Yeah, that's the feedback we've had from MG themselves. Yeah. So basically, MG, obviously, we sent them loads of photos of things and said, look, there's a different fit on this depending which car, because not all of them have got the same gap underneath. Some of them do, some don't. We fed it back to MG. At the moment, they've said that it's not, that they're not looking to replace it because it's a undercover out of the way and nobody sees it. But if that changes due to the volume of people mentioning it's their dealers, then obviously they might do something. But at the moment, it's not. And if we haven't got a different part to supply, we can't do anything with it. We can't do anything other than we can drill some holes out of yours and try and fit it differently. But you probably don't want us doing that. So yeah, that's one of the things that we're sort of hands tied. If they don't have a different part, we can't fit it. I saw sorry, as well, just continuing what was said about batteries. Dave's put on the chat. Cattle have also announced their 500 watt-hours per kilogram batteries starting production this year, which could lead to some very light EVs. I saw that they're looking at applications for like electric planes using those, because it means that obviously you get a high energy density, you can get more power for a lighter weight, which obviously helps when you've got a plane.
Yeah.
I think Archie's comment about the wee blue bag was when we were talking about sodium salt batteries, and he's talking about salt and shake crisps, I think there.
Oh, right, okay. So,
I had two looks at that and thought, oh God, what the hell am I missing there? But my grocery background is coming to the fore, guys. Archie will tell me if I'm right or wrong. So I wish I hadn't brought that up, Les. I could see the wee vein inside your head popping again.
I think it's fair to bring it out. I mean, it must be annoying for people with early cars that tended to have more faults.
Mine, I've looked everywhere on my car for an actual stamp of date of when it was built, and the only thing I've ever found was there was a piece of paper in the glove box.
Yeah.
And on that, my wife's car, I should say, was built in June of last year.
Right. So quite early.
That was when it was built.
Yeah.
June of last. That's the only date I can see, and it says build date, and I'm thinking it's the 22nd of June. Might have been July, either June or July last year. That's when it was built.
Yeah, well, they produced a whole load ready to ship to the UK and Europe for the launch, which happened in September, was it?
Yeah, I got mine in September. Yeah, September, October. So
if yours was one of the first launch,
one of the early ones. Yeah.
I mean, what we're seeing on the forum is that people who've had cars sort of from November onwards that were produced, they're much less, far fewer faults are being found.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things as well with, like anything, the volume of cars that they have shifted now to the point where we see bugs or whatever you want to call them on, come up from, on the thing. They get reported back and they get actioned quite quickly at the factory. obviously it's the catch up then of fixing all the ones that were on the water and already been built and everything like that, and finding out where they've gone to and trying to get the dealers to fix them if possible.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So presumably dealers get told immediately when something's available. Is there a communication problem where some dealers claim not to know about an update, and a member is reported going to another dealer and they do know and they can fix it?
So the dealers have access to an intranet site where the MG dealer portal I'm actually looking at now, and we have comms that come out whenever they have something to tell. So today, for example, they've told there's one about the new MGHS model year 23. There's a new price list which includes the new model year 23 HS. There's some supply chain updates, as I just said, and then looking back, there's a few. The last sort of notification we had of any sort of campaign work in terms of repair was about the MG4 locking functionality, and that was 17th of March.
Yeah.
And then there was one for an MGHS plug-in hybrid PTC wiring ground wire inspection. That's back.
So that sounds like the more severe faults. But so the general updates, are they? I mean, I understood it was a question of the dealer plugging the car in. The car talks to the China.
All right. So in terms of software updates for the car, so in terms of software updates, the general rule from MG historically has been, if you get a car, unless we've told you to update it, don't update it.
Yeah.
So the car was just shipped with whatever version of software was on the car when it was built. MG then later sent out a thing saying, whenever you get an electric car, despite what we've said before about everything else, when you get an electric car in, you need to make sure you do the following ECUs are on the latest version of software, because there could be an upgrade. So it's things like the BMS, the body computer, the infotainment, for example. Those things should be updated at PDI or whenever the car comes in for its next service, if it's already gone through a PDI and it's already handed over. Now, some dealers perhaps aren't as thorough with checking through all those different ECUs as they should be.
So that's a manual process, is it? They have to.
Yeah, it's still like doing a Windows update in some say. You basically plug the laptop in, you do a diagnostic on it, and then you've got to go into each ECU and say, what version of software are you? Okay, is there an update available? Yes. Okay, install step 1 of the update.
Right.
Okay, has that worked? Okay, right, now install step 2 of the update.
Right.
Okay, and now do the config file that goes with that. Right, okay, so that's that ECU done. Now I need to do the next one. And it's a very labor intensive. It's not just like it would be handy if it was like Windows Update, Microsoft Update, you pressed update and it did all the ECUs and it just says, we've done 12 ECUs for you.
Right.
It's not, unfortunately. It's quite a manual process per ECU, which does mean that occasionally, odd things can get missed, or sometimes as well, we've seen it where, say, for example, an update to do with the vehicle to load functionality might require an update to the BMS, the onboard charge controller, and also the infotainment. And if you did those in that order, it would work.
Right.
But if you did them in an if you went into the infotainment first and then tried to do the other two, it wouldn't accept the update.
Yeah.
So that then becomes a real faff. So unfortunately,
that explains a lot.
So due to the
I don't know where I'd got it from, but I had heard that you plugged it in and it magically talked to Chinese servers and did all the updates. But clearly that wouldn't explain why.
The car does speak to so each update has to be updated from China as well. So
but I hadn't appreciated it was the manual. You have to kick off each one manually and go.
And also it's the case of as well. It's not just that we don't just put all the latest version of software on the laptop and then that laptop's got the latest version of software and we plug it into one car and then the next and the next.
That's what I thought. But it doesn't.
It's what you do is you plug the car into the laptop. The car speaks to the laptop speaks to China. The China then says, okay, we've got updates for this. That then downloads it from that server, puts it on the car. Then you go to the next one. So it's really not
optimal.
It's not optimal, no, and it's not as smooth as perhaps people.
And that really explains then why some people are ending up with different module versions, different bugs when they think they've gone to the dealer for the latest updates. Yeah.
So it is. It's a faff, and it's not. I know it's. I'm not trying to excuse the dealers here, but when you're given, 45 minutes to do a car service, for example, and it takes an hour and a half to do the software updates. it can be that some updates get missed because they either don't have time or they get distracted doing something else because they're trying to, leave that doing its updates whilst they get on with the next service because that one hasn't finished, and they've got time-wise, they've got their hours already, charged out.
Sometimes the server's down, so
that doesn't help us either. Yeah.
So thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah, so it is not as straightforward as perhaps we wish it was.
Paul Borham's just asking on the MG4. He's got the light interior, been a lucky winner of a build mistake.
Yeah.
Is there any plans to bring that to the UK?
Say again, sorry.
The light interior on the MG4. He's ended up with one because I think it was a mistake in production. And
not to
he's
my
asking
knowledge.
if we're going to get it. Right.
Not to my knowledge, no.
No, they usually in Europe they get those, don't they?
Yeah, they do it.
Yeah.
They get it in the Netherlands, they get it in Spain.
So
We don't get it over here. The MG5's the same. The MG5 just the same. We get a light interior in the MG5. We don't get it here.
Yeah, Miles, where's that decided? Is that MG UK, China? Who decides what we get?
The interior will be MG UK. Basically, we obviously have different cars because we've got right-hand drive instead of left-hand drive. And so when they're building cars for volume, it's basically a case of, okay, we will commit to so many of such and whatever. MG strategy in the UK for volume has been that they will give people the least number of choices possible. So that's why you've got like 5 colours and 2 specifications rather than, is that because they want volume? Yeah, and it's a lot easier for them to sort of say, okay, well, we're going to have 100 black, 100 white, 100 red, 100 whatever. And then the only options are, and that's all the SEs we've got. That's all, the trophies we've got. And then as they run out of white ones, they'll say, okay, well, we'll order slightly more white ones next time. We'll order whatever, sort of block order them. Whereas if you've got light interior, the risk for I suppose for MG UK is that if the light interior doesn't fly with people, because people don't tend to go quite as wacky on the interiors in the UK as they do in other countries, then the risk is that they've got 300 cars that they've got a light interior and they end up having to do some sort of sale on to get shut. Having said that, one of our other franchises now is Aura, and obviously their new Funky Cat has got different interiors. They've got the black leather interior, they've got a red and beige interior, and they've got a green and beige interior. And one of the big comments that we're getting on that car is that we've got, isn't it so nice to have some colour in the inside? Isn't it so nice to have a bright red interior or a bright green interior? Isn't it nice to have something that's not black? So maybe there will be a case that MG, as they get more confident, will at least launch, or it might be that on the all-wheel drive or whatever that they offer. On the HS they did a red leather interior, which sold really well. It would be good if they did something similar on the 4 or the 5 or.
And how light is the light? Is it white or beige or grey?
It's like a really light grey, isn't it?
Light, very light, creamy colour. Yeah, it is.
There's a photo on the forum.
There's a few photos on the forum about it. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that put me off the 4 really was seemed so claustrophobic because the smaller cabin than the ZS I was in, and the ZS has got the nice sky roof, and even when that's across, you've got it's a light coloured headline, and then you get into the 4 and it's black. I mean,
it's a very dark place to sit, and that's one of the things that I've noticed,
particularly in the back.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed about the Aura Funky Cat is that it's having that lighter plastic and the brighter colours and everything does really sort of lift the interior, make it a much more, I suppose, fun place to be. But it's a bit brighter and lighter, and
I think we should demand more options.
But I think would they offer it as an option on every colour, or would it only be an option on the trophy, and would it only be an option if it didn't clash with the exterior colour? That's what to sort of think about that as well. I've just seen a comment from Andy. Any update on Lane Keep Assist getting an off button? Andy, Lane Keep Assist is part of the NCAP suite of 5-star rating that it has, and they're no longer allowed to have it switch off permanently. So you've got to actually have it that it defaults to the on position in order to get your 5-star NCAP, which is the same thing for your forward collision detection and everything like that. So previously, these features where you were able to turn off things like lane keep assist, automatic lane following. You need them for the 5-star NCAP rating. So you
It
can't.
changed last year, I think, doesn't it? All new cars.
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
you can't switch them off. So it's the same on the Funky Cat as well.
Yeah.
And there's John Owen really sticking it in. He's got the red HS.
Yeah, with the roof, as well.
With the roof.
Wow.
John, well done.
Yeah.
So
A good time to talk about the Cyberster or whatever it is.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
fantastic looking car. I've seen, obviously the images have now been put out this last week since the Shanghai show. I was lucky enough to see it in the metal in January, and although not drive it was a static model, mainly clay, but with functioning things on. The doors are electric scissor doors, so they're powered. The plan is that they are going to remain as powered scissor doors on the production version. I've also seen comments, people say, "Oh, they're never going to make it to production," but yes, they are. And the power that's been talked about. Let's see if I can just go here without so I don't misquote. The top range version is going to have 2 motors, all-wheel drive, 0 to 60 in around 3 seconds, and yeah, talking about sort of 538 horsepower, I think it is. So
What a car.
enough, I think, as Rolls-Royce would put it, adequate.
What colour's the interior?
Well, I've seen various options of red and black and all sorts, actually. So
What's the price, Miles? Come on. You must know.
it's they've not talked about price. They've told us that they want to be disruptive with the price. So they want to price it competitively. They don't want it to be
Right.
too far from where
might
the
start
current
with a
range.
4.
I think it could start with the 4. There's talk that it could be a low 4.
Right.
And I suspect that the top of the range version could end up with a 5.
Yeah.
But when you sort of compare against size-wise, this is going to be a similar sort of size to a Porsche Boxster. That starts at about £53,000 in the UK.
Yeah.
So if it can undercut that by 10 grand and have twice as much power, then I think it should do quite well.
Yeah.
And obviously being electric as well, rather than a petrol car. In terms of power, canvas hood, I mean, I posted some photos of it on Facebook the other day, and one of my mates said, "Oh, well, that's not a sports car because it weighs 1.8 tons. It's it needs to be. It can't be over a ton if it's a sports car." Well, I think you'll find that there's quite a lot of I think the 540 horsepower is going to make it sporty enough for a lot of people. And yes, it's 1.8 tons is not inconsiderable. However, it's
there's different types. I mean, there's the Lotus Spirit, isn't it, where it's minimal weight, bare metal.
Oh yeah, if you're going to have a Caterham and
rip it out,
add
maximum handling. But there are a lot of people who want a bit of comfort, bit of practicality, go away for a weekend, put the bags in the back.
It's less liable at that way. It's less liable at that way to flip over, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of my mates has got a Lotus Elise, and I had a little go in it, and to be honest, it rattles around like nobody's business. It feels like a go-kart, but not in a good way. It feels like everything, like the steering's heavy as hell. The gears are, well, shocking because it's a gear stick for start off. Very, very notchy and it's very raw. But I'll be honest, if I'm paying 40 or 50 grand for a car, which I wouldn't do, but if I was paying 40 or 50 grand for a car, I'd want it to be comfortable. I'd want it to be a daily driver. I wouldn't want to get out sweating.
No.
I want it, and I think that there's an awful lot of people there who want a flashy looking car. They want a nice, comfortable car. They want something. They want to be able to do 200, 300 miles and get out and not be broken.
Yeah.
And I was always broken after I took it 10 miles around Skipton. So it was,
Well, I mean, I had an MX5 and Mark III, and lovely though it was. Lovely though the MX5 was, it was too cramped, it was too small. My back did ache after a couple of hours. There was no room in the boot. I'd cram stuff in. And it was lovely when I was in my 20s and 30s. But Nowadays, I want something a bit more practical, a bit more space, a bit more comfortable, where I can get out of it after a long journey and be comfortable.
I would just stop there. That I can get out.
Get out.
That's a stage of life I'm at now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is, though. I think as well, some people have got, like, again, some people have commented, yeah, well, putting the scissor doors on it just makes it heavier. It does a little bit, but you know what? It also showboats quite a bit, doesn't it? It's a bit of it's a flouncy thing, but again, it gets looks. It's like, the Renault Twizy has got scissor doors, and that looks it looks quirky. It stands out. I think
they're practical too.
They are, yeah. If you park in a tight space, they're easy to get out. I think I borrowed back when BP Polar used to do their points thing. I managed to get the BMW i8 for a week as their sort of points make prizes thing. The BMW i8, my son thought it was absolutely, at the time he was about 8 years old. He thought it was amazing. So I came to surprise him from school, picked him up in a BMW i8 with scissor doors. And it was like a spaceship had landed outside his school. It was just the drama of it, these big doors flicking up. Now they weren't even powered, but they were, it just looks unusual. It looks cool. And I think that's sort of
the best car I've ever had for getting in and out was a Cessna Model X, Model X, Model X with the gull windows on the back. Beautiful getting in and out of that. Lovely. You have no problem with that, Dave.
I think that the Cyberster is going to be a comfortable, sporty looking and powerful. In the rear wheel drive version, 310 horsepower, they say, all wheel drive 536. 310 horsepower is still going to fairly fly. I mean, think it. It's a similar sort of weight to an MG5. The MG5 has got 200, is it? Less than 200 horsepower, and that feels quite sprightly. So imagine that having 300, even 310 in a rear wheel drive version,
it'll go.
Will shift, and 530 horsepower will absolutely fly. And realistically, the 120 mile an hour top speed
that's fine.
Way more than anyone's going to need anyway.
Yeah, unless you live in Germany or go to the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
Well, even so, I think that realistically, nobody's. Yeah, I mean, 120 mile an hour is fine for a top speed. Yeah. Again, this quest for 250 miles an hour or whatever, 155 like they do, limits in Germany. I think 120 is perfectly fast enough. I've driven at 120 miles an hour a couple of times in cars, and you don't have much reaction time. So I think that. I think that realistically, unless you are on a track, in which case possibly an electric MG Cyberster isn't the car you'd choose. I just think that it's going to take, for a lot of people as well, if they can get that price down to, like say, starting with 40. I think it's going to be an achievable price point for a lot of people. We're thinking of this sports car will come at the same sort of price as what people are paying for an entry-level Ioniq 5, an entry-level Kia EV6. An entry level Nissan Ariya is 46 grand now. So
wow.
And I think I'm right in saying I think the VW ID3 is about 38, 39 grand now. So if the Cyberster can come in starting at low 40s, it's not an expensive car at that.
No,
I think it's an awful lot of car for the money, and I think it will definitely steal some people from other brands who.
It definitely will sell at that price.
Well, I
can't see it fairly.
I think from my point of view, I think that I've got 2 kids, but I'm happy for them to walk, and I'll have a Cyberster because I think they're one's 16, nearly 17, the other one's 12. They could both do with the exercise. I'll have a Cyberster, and they can walk. So I don't think that the fact that it's only got 2 seats is going to stop me getting one.
No, it's not a car for the school run, but that's
Any idea on the sills? Because Bernie's asking on the chat, whether you have to be 6'6" to be able to get out without banging your legs.
No, I think it should be okay. From the model I saw, it looks like it's got quite a reasonable, normal sort of style sill, and the doors lifting up would seem to give more space for that as well.
Bernie's asking the question as well. What about boot space? Will I get my golf clubs in it, Miles? So.
I don't know what your golf game is like, mate. I don't know if it's how many clubs you've got, but I think it possibly I would imagine that it's quite a large car. It's similar, well, similar sort of size to a Boxster. It depends on how they've structured it, where the roof goes and things like that, I suppose. It might be that you can't get it with the roof down, but you could with the roof up.
It might have a fruit, or no, or not.
Hat, I don't know.
Presumably, if you've only got the rear motor version, there's not much up front. I'd have thought. The big bonnet.
Unless, it's got a long bonnet. I don't know. It depends how much stuff they've sort of tucked away under there.
I would suspect that they've tucked away so that you can sit low. They've moved things like all the AC and the
which kind of what they did with MG4,
all up front.
All those pumps and everything.
It's all inside the bonnet now. Well, I mean, there's room in the MG4 and the MG5 for a front. Bags of room.
One.
A little bit of alteration, bags of room.
Yeah.
No problem.
Any word on range, Miles? On the Cyberster?
No. They haven't said battery sizes or anything yet. No. That's not been confirmed. I would imagine, given the weight of it, it would be around. It's probably going to be a 70 kilowatt-hour battery or bigger. I mean, Cattle, who obviously have been doing these new sodium batteries and the new light batteries that they've described, Cattle's in partnership with SAIC. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of this new Cattle technology is in this Cyberster. And that's perhaps why they haven't announced it just yet as to what the actual range is going to be, because they might be still working on some of these packs. Because the launch in the UK is going to be next year, so next summer by the time. Interesting time for the summer for next year, I think. So I don't know when they've orders on it, probably later this year.
One final point on it, insurance group 224, is it something like that?
It goes to 50, I think, does it now? Insurance group?
Yeah,
I don't know what it goes up to.
It does, it goes to 50.
It'll be surely expensive.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Jaguar I-Pace that we had was group 48, I think. But the insurance quote on that wasn't drastically different from like a Honda CR-V at group 24. I think once you get to my age and above, I think you'll be fine with the insurance. I think
I'm well past your age, Miles.
I think it's not as massive an issue. Yeah, I suspect my 16, soon to be 17-year-old son isn't going to get insured on it anytime soon. But that's the thing. Actually, I'd really like if I could get a cheap electric car that my son could learn to drive in.
Yeah.
Because I would kind of, obviously, I am Mr. Electric. I've been driving electric cars for 8 years. Wife's got an electric car. It really upsets me that I'm going to have to buy a petrol car for him to learn to drive in, just because I can't afford the insurance on anything.
It's a great shame there aren't cheap EV conversions. Limited range, low power.
There's a few coming. There's a few in the pipeline, isn't there?
Well, even like the Citroen Ami for him.
Not got a lot of idea,
but I can't get anyone to insure it. There's no they wouldn't insure on it. I could get insured myself like 150 quid, but I couldn't put him on even if I wanted to pay £1,500.
No, it's terrible.
Range is 60 miles or something, isn't it?
43. 43 miles range and 28 miles an hour top speed. So, the one good thing is, if you tried to do a midnight flit, I'd find him quite easily.
You'd probably catch him on your foot.
Just set off on my bike and just say, So I think that I'm excited for MG having a sports car. I think there's a number of people out there who think of MG as a sports car manufacturer still. It's certainly one of the reasons why the brand has such a presence in the UK. If MG was launched in the UK as SAIC, it would not have had the impact it has. No. The fact is that MG, that octagonal symbol, has got such a brand heritage with it in the UK that, and across Europe and across North America as well, that that brand stands for a lot. And I think that people were very disappointed when MG just started launching SUVs. The ZS and the HS and the GS and the MG3 weren't really in the style of what they thought that MG should be.
My pin-up car as a child was an MGB the GT, so that's what I wanted at the time. Never had one, but
I suppose credit's due to MG as well. They're not really just sitting back and cashing in on early success. They are developing new cars and bringing out new options, which is good to see.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think that the thing with the the thing about the MG heritage is that they've got an awful lot of people out there who have still got MG BGTs, who have still got MGCs, who've got MG midgets, and these people have these classic cars, but they have typically another car as well, and it's probably a big German saloon or something similar.
Yeah.
At the moment, the MG brand doesn't offer a car that would tempt them out of that, Germanic make. But I think the Cyberster,
Might do.
or MGC or whatever they decide to call it. I hope it's MGC. I think MGC sounds a lot better. If the Cyberster comes to the UK and it is, I say, cheaper than a Boxster, I think that it's going to get a lot of people new to EV because of that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
Yeah, rattle some feathers.
The range of cars that are coming out from various Chinese brands is going to be, much wider choice than, for example, you get with Teslas.
Yeah.
Well, I saw a graphic the other day, which was car sales across the world in EVs, and the figures from 2021. In 2021, there were 7 million EVs sold across the world, of which 3.5 million were sold in China.
Yeah.
So it's something like, it was 56%, I think, of all electric cars sold worldwide were sold in China. So more than the rest of the world put together. So China knows how to make electric cars. They know that there's demand for electric cars. Obviously, domestically, there's massive demand. But they can then rattle out these cars worldwide to fill all these niches that other car manufacturers, more established car manufacturers in the Western world, haven't even thought about designing as an electric car yet. And with the battery development that's happening from companies like Castle, obviously a Chinese brand as well, they're really going to lead the way. If they can bring out a battery that costs a fifth of what everybody else is using in Europe, and they come in with realistically, people are going to would rather pay 12 grand for a car than 20. They'd rather pay 20 than 30. So if they can get that, we've seen with MG, with other brands, Great Wall Motors and etc. The quality of Chinese cars is such now that it's on a par, if not better than some European and Korean and Japanese manufacturers. And if they can just get the branding right, I think that's the thing that MG's got right, is that it's got the brand behind it.
And the network, hasn't it? I mean, some of these manufacturers like the Aura, Funky Cat, and that they are partnering with dealer networks to get, but they're only opening 1 or 2 branches to start with. So you wonder how quickly they'll be able to ramp up and actually.
Yeah, I mean, the Aura's got I think 5 dealers in the UK. They're hoping to have 20 by the end of this year. BYD have currently got, I think, 5 sites, and they're hoping to have 20 by the end of this year. MG's currently got 120 sites. Yeah. So that coverage that MG has got obviously gets them a lot bigger exposure and gives them a bigger slice of the pie. But these Chinese brands mean business. They will
catch up.
They will be coming in big droves. I've seen.
They will.
I've seen about what's that new one called? Is it another new? Is it Hyper? There's various Chinese brands which are launching across Europe. UK takes slightly longer because we've all got right-hand drives. Chinese is a left-hand drive manufacturer. China is a left-hand drive country, as is Europe, of course.
Miles, do you think there'd be a ride if they called it the MGB EV?
MGB EV, maybe, or MGE GT.
Because certainly there used to be a ZS back. It was a saloon car, wasn't it? The MG ZS.
MG was saloon in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
So there is a precedent there. They can have that one for free.
Well, it sounds good, that Dave. It sounds good.
MG marketing do not have to give me a new version of one. Just
they have. They've already patented. They've already trademarked MGC EV as a trademark. So that sounds likely.
Right.
Les, it looks like I'm not getting one. Well, Steve Green's asking if there's still plans for a small electric MG.
Yeah, that's should be here next year as well. So it's basically like an MG3 replacement that's EV. So it's slightly smaller than the MG4, obviously. They have got a car in India, which is a small electric EV. but that looks a bit more like a Mitsubishi iMe sort of, you know, it looks like it's in box. It doesn't look like it's part of the current MG family. And I think that for crash worthiness and everything else in the UK, we'd probably want it to be a bit more like the MG4. So yeah.
We don't hear so much from Steve Green these days, but that's because his squeaky steering column's been sorted.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Oh, that was a long
I think
saga, that. Yeah.
I think that MG's got some. They have got some more products in the pipeline. I expect that by the end of next year, the showrooms are going to be full to bursting point with new models that you know to sit in. I know there's a planned upgrade for the MG ZS EV. There's a planned small electric car. There's a planned replacement for the HS at some point as well next year. So
Exciting
They'll be on
times.
the modular, all be on the modular platform.
all be on
won't
the new modular platform as all of the manufacturers are doing these skateboard chassis now. But yeah, it does give a lot more flexibility for designing these cars.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm looking at the time. We've still got one item we should be picking up on, and that is Octopus.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of activity on the change of rates. Is anybody keeping a close eye on this one?
Yeah, so I just got
Yeah.
the email today that
Me too.
Intelligent Octopus is dropping from 10p off peak down to 7.5,
Mhm.
and Go is dropping from 12p down to 9.5.
No,
it? 9.5.
Yeah.
And there's a cut to the peak rate as well, so it's dropping below 40, I think. For
Yeah, it was a 20% drop and then a 7% drop on the day rate. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
and
Yeah.
this email came out approximately 2 hours after I just completed the switch to Octopus Flux tariff.
Oh, no.
Which has got a peak rate of something like 50 pence, an off-peak rate of 19. So
You might be
That's a bit-
changing.
the benefit of Flux is that I can sell back to the grid
Yes.
at peak times and get paid like 33 pence. So
There's 3 different rates, aren't there, with Flux?
yeah. So basically, you've got a 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. is your super off-peak, and then you've got a peak rate which is 4 till 7 p.m.
Yeah.
and the rest of it is the Flux rate.
Yeah.
But then you've got a different export price and import. I've got a solar and a Powerwall, so it sort of makes sense.
It's a pretty
I'm
good
gonna try it for a month
price.
and see how it goes.
It looked pretty good. Was it 20 to 30p export? I think I saw
Yeah, so in peak rate it's 31p, I think I get,
31p. Yeah, that's pretty
which is quite considerable. Really. So I can, in theory, charge up my battery off solar, obviously during the day, and then sell it back at peak rate and make a massive profit, and then I can charge my battery again
Overnight.
2 and 5 or whatever, and so it's. I'll see how it works. I'm going to try it for a month and see. I think that in summer it'll work. I think in winter I'd prefer to be on Go.
Yeah.
We can't do Intelligent Octopus because I don't have a Ohmi charger and my cars aren't compatible with the Intelligent Octopus pricing. But yeah, I think that I'll give Flux a go for a month and see how it runs with a bit of sunshine, and hopefully it should be okay. But I think if not, then I'll flick over to Go next month and benefit from the cheaper peaks. With
So
my
you'll
previous
give it a
Go
go.
tariff, I was basically able to avoid using any peak rate electricity.
Mhm.
Thanks to Powell.
You're on, Barry.
Miles, and you started down the route with the battery around about the same time I did, but you got yours installed quite quickly. Mine took forever, and it didn't actually go until January. But looking at my March figures, I've got 4.9 kilowatts of PV with 10 kilowatts of battery, to which I can only use 9 kilowatt hours of that. March, because I've shifted also my dishwashing, washing machine, hot water all to the Go 4-hour slot.
Yeah.
I'm charging that battery up at night and then just running it down and letting the battery top up. I did 97.5% of my consumption in March was at off-peak rate.
Yeah, that's similar to what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and,
I think that
unfortunately, SEG is taking forever to get through the system, and that has been a problem. And the other thing is that 5 weeks after my system is installed, one side of I've got 2 rows facing different directions, and one side went down, and I believe it's the inverter, not the panels, because switching the things on and off, I can get a blip out of the panel side that's down. But I just can't get the installer back.
Oh.
And he should have been here today, and they've just gone silent running. So
Terrible.
I'll
Terrible.
name it, but it's first for solar, and last for solar in my book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's dreadful, the service. And I spoke with the service centre today on it and trying to ring through. And I said, they go through to the message line service. And I said, look, are any calls going through to the company direct? And she says, no, they're all going to here. So I said, right, this is the 4th time I've called you today. This is the list of people I want you to send a message to. And I'm disgusted that I'm just not getting callbacks. I was promised
You have a Twitter account that you can hammer.
Dreadful. But anyway.
Terrible. Terrible.
Terrible.
Bad
It all comes down to the service, doesn't it, in the end of the day?
It does, yeah.
But I'd started off switching over to Intelligent this morning, and I'd got the thing on the website, it's all set up to go. Then because the car was out, I couldn't do the initial charge to set things up. My wife had the car. When she came back with it, I went to go to do it and realized that there was this email that come through saying your go rate's gone down in the middle. So in the middle of the changeover, you're a little ahead of me by a couple of hours, I guess. But in the middle of the change, so I've sort of paused that and tried to ask them what the rates were for Intelligent, because they hadn't told me about that. They don't tell me what go was. So it's good to know that 7.5 is it, right? I'll go ahead with it tomorrow then and complete the changeover.
Yeah, I think with Intelligent Octopus, particularly because you get a longer off peak as well. So it's
6 hours, and it starts earlier in the evening.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to support Zappies. That's what I've got.
11:30. Yeah.
Because you have to have the right car or charger, don't you?
Yeah,
you do. Yeah, you do.
Or a Zappy. Well, Zappy told that should be here within the next month or two. So hopefully.
Yeah, they said it's in. Octopus have to do their software bit. Zappy have done their software bit, and Octopus say they had scheduled it for May this year, but I don't know if it's going to happen in May.
They've extended the range of cars as well, which are compatible.
Yeah,
it's on their website. I noticed today. Since 3 weeks ago, or something when I looked at it.
And there's Miles, you're saying to Steve that you think it's automatic, it'll just change over at midnight.
Yeah, the email says if you're on Octopus Go, don't do anything, it's going to change automatically.
Change, it does, yeah, that's what the email says, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
So yeah, for Octopus Flux, the idea on mine, I'm buying in currently I'm paying 32.3 pence to import, but if I was to export at the moment, it would be exporting at 21 pence. And if I import, if I'm buying in from the grid and my off peak, it's 19 pence. But if I can buy it at 19 pence, I can sell it at peak rate at 34. So I'll see how it goes. It depends. I think it needs a sunny day really, and sort of lower usage. I suspect if I start charging both cars maximum every night, then it's going to start costing me a lot, because it's not going to do it in the 3 hour sort of, super off peak window. But we'll, I'll run it for a month and see how it goes, and I'll say I'll just shift to go if not. But I thought it was worth giving it a shot as a new tariff. Give it a go.
Mike from Wales, Fish TV, and he'll be chuffed. He was all over Octopus, wasn't he? So yeah, hopefully it'll be automatic for him. Guys, I'm seeing the time is quickly getting away from us.
Yeah, 1 minute, Dave. Just before we go off that subject about solar, I got an email yesterday. B&Q, the DIY people, they've teamed up with a company called Egg. I think it's called Egg Energy. I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah, they're the ones that installed my solar.
Egg, yeah. Well, they've teamed up with them, B&Q, and they're quoting here, as I can see in front of me here now, around £7,800 for 8 400-watt panels, an inverter, and an 8 kilowatt battery.
Wow,
which is a bloody bargain.
Yeah, I mean, I paid 15 grand for my.
That is a bargain.
8 panels plus Powerwall, so.
Yeah.
That's
so what that's all about, I don't know, but it's it's for B&Q anyway. B&Q are doing it with Egg. So
yeah, if anyone's thinking of doing solar, just do it. It's honestly so.
Oh, definitely, just do it.
So we put solar on one of our buildings at work the other week. Well, it starts 1st of March. It was commissioned, so it's only been on like a month and a half. It's a 12 kilowatt panel system, So far this month, it's saved us 300 quid on our electric bill.
Yeah.
It costs us like 12 grand to install it. So I think, if we're looking at sort of, an average of sort of this month, it looks like it's going to be about £500 it's going to save us just 1 month. So it's going to pay for itself in like 2 years, 2.5 years. So,
I was telling you this last year, once when you was looking at yours, get it done and stop messing about with it. Just go and get it done.
Les, will we get a 10% discount for being oldies? We are being cute.
I know, that's a good point, Dave. I'll have to look into that. I don't know.
I'm really disappointed that Miles
I'll have to go on Wednesday.
the stingy Yorkshireman sleeping there in the car.
Hey? I couldn't believe that though when I seen that. I thought,
that's brilliant.
That's cheap. That's cheap. And what it is, I have no idea, but that's what it's saying. Starting from, it says starting from. As usual.
What I would say though is that you get a bigger bang for your buck from the batteries than you do the solar.
Yeah.
Because the solar then can infill, because solar is going to fluctuate throughout the day, but you're running off your batteries.
Yeah.
And that's really where it's going. Because like with mine, only half of my panels are working, and I'm still hitting 97%. So I could put another 5 kilowatts on it easily, and see the benefit from that right throughout the winter.
Brilliant. I toyed with the battery, but they were still really expensive. So that's quite interesting, Les. I'll have a wee look at that.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but we're going to move in a couple of years, so that's what's putting me off.
Take a battery.
You can take it with you, Tom. No problem.
Yeah, the battery we're thinking about.
Take it with you.
Waiting for the prices, but the solar panels, I'm not so keen about taking them off.
Yeah, that's a bit difficult, that, but the battery you can set with you, no problem.
Yeah. Well, they're coming as cheap as you just said, then maybe now's the time.
Yeah. No, you can't always install a battery without solar. It's just,
you don't have to have solar. Yeah, you can just have a battery.
I'd definitely look at that. Yeah, it's just been waiting for the price to drop.
I think something's going to get done about that. I don't think the likes of Octopus are going to let people get away with that for much longer, quite honestly, because it's saving people a fortune. Having a Tesla Powerwall, for example, 13.5 kilowatts or whatever it is, the battery, that'll run most places for a day without any problem. Charging up overnight on off-peak electricity, it's going to cost them a fortune.
Yeah, and it can charge up at rate of 5 kilowatts, can't it?
Something like that.
Yeah. Just charge at 5 and it can charge at 5.
So only need 2.5 hours and you're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right,
guys, we're going to have to bring it to a close now. Just before I do, we've mentioned this before, but forum member Sloucher is printing and posting MG4 manuals for all those people who need one. He's doing that at cost, and there is a link in the forum thread with more information. If anybody's interested in that, please follow that up. Any MG dealers out there who want to sponsor this forum and connect with their community, please email admin@mgevs.com to discuss the options. I'm sure Stuart will be keen to speak to them. Now, we've got a bit of inside information here as well. Before we go, we always mention the Aura electric vehicles and the Aura Funky Cat. But Miles, you've got a bit of breaking news. You are using one at the moment.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, so we've started an Aura dealership now at Chorley, one of the first 5. I've got an Aura Funky Cat which I picked up on Monday, so I will be running that for the next few months, just to see how it goes, and obviously do some sort of real world expectations with it. So I'll be going down to the fully charged live show at Farnborough. Starts next Friday, the 28th.
Yeah.
I'll be driving down the M6 to go to that in the Aura Funky Cat. So if you watch out on Twitter or Instagram, you'll see us tweeting about our live journey down, driving it and seeing how it gets on, rapid charging and so on the way down. And yeah, if anyone's at the fully charged show at Farnborough next Friday, if you see me out and about, please do stop and say hello. I'll be down at the Aura stand for 9:45 because they're unveiling a new electric car, the Aura Lightning Cat, or the next Aura Cat, they're calling it officially, which is sort of an Ioniq 6 sized saloon sort of vehicle. But yeah, I'll be down looking at also what's coming from the other competitors like BYD and all these other companies that are new to the UK. So we'll see what's what's happening with that. I believe Lotus have got the Elantra there as well, so I don't suspect I'll be having one of those as a dealership anytime soon, but it's always nice to look at.
Yeah. So if Stuart permits us, maybe the next podcast, we'll get a wee bit of an update from you, Miles, and see what your thoughts are, having driven it.
Yeah, I think we're going to possibly try and do an Aura EVs podcast at some point. It's difficult just with timings of everything, and obviously the fact that I'm trying to spread myself a bit thinly across various franchises. But yeah, we'll probably try and do a sort of an Aura EVs podcast and sort of with some new owners and just see how, there's a few teething faults like there is with the MG4. There's a couple of software bugs here and there. So we'll get some sort of answers on those as well. So yeah, just watch this space. We'll mention it.
Great. Okay. So that's it for this podcast, guys. Thanks everybody. Les, great seeing you again.
And you, Dave. See you next time.
Tom, great seeing you. Welcome on board, and I hope we were quite gentle with you.
Thank you. Yes, it was a nice, gentle introduction. I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Now, guys, the breaking news is we have got a turncoat. We've got a traitor in the camp. And Mr. Hager is...
No, he's not a traitor.
I'm not a traitor. I'm just I'm currently not driving an MG.
Well put, Barry.
So I will stay active on the forum, but it's probably I'll give up my seat on the podcast to someone else who is actually driving an MG.
Unless, of course, we've got a real battery issue or whatever, and we're calling you back as our
battery solar
technical guru.
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
I agree with that entirely. He's very good on that side of it.
Well, yeah, exactly. Barry, thank you very much. You've been very informative, very well versed, and great humour as well. So we owe you a debt of gratitude, and thank you very much for all you put into the podcast.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed my time here.
On a personal note, can I just say, Barry, you did a much better job of hosting it as well compared to Dave when he takes over.
Oh, right. Oh, thank you. When he was holidaying.
I was going to thank Miles Roberts from the Charlie Group for all his input, but he can swing.
Love you, Dave.
Thanks, everybody. Tune in the next one, and as I say, keep subscribed, and you'll see when the next podcast is coming up. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.